Hey guys, kinggath here, and in this video we're going to go over some of the advanced features of plots. As always, at the top of these videos, I'm going to remind you two things. One is that all of this information and more is available on our wiki at wiki.simsettlements2.com if you're looking for more information or a place to quickly refresh your memory. And two is that if you see anything I show you here that you don't like, you can customize almost every aspect of Sim Settlements 2 by going into the MCM menu or the City Manager holotape and checking out the gameplay settings. It is a very customizable mod. Alright, the first thing we're going to cover are the HOLO Icons. These are what are projected above your plots by your ASAM sensor, and they are a way for you to quickly identify which plots you have in an area, and also anything that needs your attention immediately. So I'm going to go over each of the rows and explain how they work and how you can make use of them when you're playing with Sim Settlements. So you'll notice first of all that on each of the plot types, there's an icon that matches the building icon in workshop mode for that particular plot type. So we've got the purple playing cards for recreational, the yellow wrench for industrial, the blue cash register for commercial, etc. And so that top left icon is just to quickly show you something that matches something you're already familiar with in workshop mode. But that second icon may throw you, and not all plots have that, but most of them will. In fact, the only one currently that does not have one are the single person residential. And that was originally done because we wanted to simplify the amount of icons that were displaying up in the sky for you when you were just starting out, and that was the first plot you build. But we have since added one. In fact, by the time you're watching this video, we may have even added it in for consistency to show up in the sky there. So that second one represents the building class, and the building class drives most of the behavior of a plot. So the actual plot type is just to tell you the category of buildings that you're going to be able to select from, or that your settlers can select from, but the actual behavior, the way it impacts your settlement, the production of resources, etc., is all going to come from that building class. And you'll learn about those as you go. If you watched the previous video on customization, you'll know that you can access the list of classes and select those instead of a building plan, and it will choose a building plan that's appropriate. So we won't get any further into that right now. It will do a future video breaking down all of the different building classes. So the next icon over is the level. This will show a 0, 1, 2, or 3. In the previous version of Sim Settlements 2, we also had a level 4 available for some plot types, and that mechanic may or may not return, but note for now, it's 0, 1, 2, or 3. And that level will increase as the building upgrades. The next row down on your icons is the occupants row. You're going to see for most plots a single icon, and it's going to be the waving Vault Boy icon, and it will either be red, meaning that the plot is not assigned, or green, meaning that someone is assigned to it. But on some of these, whether it be because of a class or because the building plan supports it, you will find that there are 2 additional entries there, or sometimes just 1. And the Pip Vault Boy will change to yellow in some cases. So a yellow Vault Boy means that there's additional space available, and this is a multi-occupant building plan. The first number tells you how many people are currently assigned, and the second number tells you how many will be able to be assigned. Now, in this case, since this building isn't built, it actually is telling you how many will be able to be assigned after it's constructed to level 1. Generally, it will always show you the current level, but there's an exception made when it's at level 0. So it's basically telling you this building plan, once you build it to level 1, will support 2 people. And generally, any of those that support multiple people will increase over time, though there are exceptions. And often when you select the building plan, it'll tell you that in the description. Now, once you have this built up to level 1 and a second settler is assigned, it will simply show a green 2 here, and the /2 will go away because you've got it at full occupation. So that is the occupants row. The next row to talk about is the status icons row. That's the third row down, and this is showing you either what's preventing the plot from upgrading or what's preventing the plot from providing its service. So on simple plots like residential, it's always just showing you what's preventing the upgrade. If you were to fill up your food meter, increase your happiness, and fill up the defense meter, you would find that the plot would suddenly be eligible to upgrade. It can also show things that stop production. For example, there's an option that hardcore players have enabled by default, which makes agricultural plots require that you keep your water maxed out for your settlement. If you were to see that red icon on an agricultural plot, that would actually prevent that plot from producing its food. So that one becomes more important if you're playing with that option on. Occasionally you'll see other icons. For example, you might see a red scrap icon, which means the settlement doesn't have enough junk for it to build. On commercial, there's a special icon. You could see the residential icon there, which means that you need more residential plots, which represent customers, in order to have the commercial plot upgrade. And there's also a status icon for when settlers are incapacitated. If you have that option on, it's another hardcore option. So the status icons will show you things, generally symbols throughout the rest of the mod that you can do something about, and all you have to do is address that thing and that plot will function again or be able to upgrade. And the last row on the icons is the power row. This will generally only show up if this is preventing the plot from upgrading or providing its service, just like the status icons, but we gave it its own row because it is a common thing that happens, and also you may have more power that is required. So for example, if the plot required something like 6 power or 10 power, we would need multiple icons to display that because we show each with a number, and it would overtake the number of icons we have if we added it into the status row. So it got its own row there. So simply adding power to that plot will make that icon go away. All right, we've spent a lot of time talking about icons and how they relate to upgrades. Now let's talk about the requirements for upgrades so that you can get your plots from level 1 to level 3. The one requirement that all plots have in common, regardless of type and class, is time. In order for a plot to go from level 1 to level 2, at least 5 days in-game must pass. To go from level 2 to level 3, at least 10 days must pass in-game, for a total of 15 days to go from level 1 to level 3. Now this is the minimum time, as there are various factors in gameplay you'll learn about later that can impact the speed at which plots upgrade. Now there's one that most people don't realize, and that is a default requirement that you visit the settlement between levels 2 and 3. So if you leave a settlement by itself for a long period of time and the plots begin to upgrade to level 2, in order for them to ever be eligible to upgrade to level 3, you must visit that settlement. So be sure to check out your settlements periodically so you can see how they're evolving over time. There are also several requirements for plots that are fairly common. Most of the plots will share them. One of those is happiness. In order for a plot to go from level 1 to level 2, you must have 70 happiness in that settlement. And to go from level 2 to level 3, you must have 80 happiness in that settlement. The one exception to that rule is recreational. Since it provides happiness, it's not locked behind happiness within the settlement, since that's its job to improve. And you'll find that we share that pattern across the mod. Generally, if a plot provides a resource, it doesn't require that resource's status meter to be full in order to upgrade. The next most common requirement for plots to upgrade is power. With the exception of the basic farm class on agricultural and the various power related classes on municipal, all other plot types and classes require that they have power in order to upgrade, and the amount of power required can change with each level. So keep an eye on your settlements to see if you need to add additional power to them so that they can upgrade to the next level. The next thing to note about upgrades is you do have to have enough scrap available for your plots to upgrade. Often your settlers will find this in the workbench and build it up, and then as you build up additional industrial and scrap is deposited into your virtual resource system, they will use that for upgrades. But without enough resources of the appropriate type, they will not be able to upgrade. All right, the last three to talk about are defense, food, and water. Defense is a universal requirement with the exception of martial plots, so every plot is looking for defense to be full before it will upgrade. Food and water are generally for residential and recreational, which demands some explanation. And of course, I mentioned earlier that water is a requirement for agricultural if you have that setting enabled. So let's talk about why food and water are required for residential and recreational. Those are the two that are hard to understand, while the rest of them are fairly self-explanatory from an immersive perspective. So food and water to us and their increasing needs represent a settler's desire to have more. You're giving them scraps at the beginning, and they're looking to have more meals per day. They're looking to have more water available for additional services, things like showers or washing themselves, washing their clothes, using the bathroom, things like that. And rather than putting all of that onus on the residential plots, we split it to the recreational plots because recreational plots are designed to be extra. There's something you don't need. Your plot can function fully well without them. And they actually tend to cost a lot of resources to further promote that idea that these should be the least important plot type. They're a luxury, they're an extra for when you have a lot of additional resources, and their food and water requirements reflect that as well in our balance. Now that you know how to upgrade your plots, let's talk about what happens when they actually do upgrade. The first thing that happens is the cost will be paid out of the settlement's scrap. Next, you'll see that the building will go under construction again, and it will eventually upgrade into a new structure, often with a significantly different look. And then finally, your resources will change. So generally, plots that produce a benefit will produce a significant amount more once they upgrade. Often these are non-linear. For example, the amount of food that's produced by an agricultural plot more than doubles after it levels up. And the scaling and everything is balanced on the needs of a variety of things. We have done a lot of balance. There's actually a spreadsheet available on the wiki if you're interested in all the different numbers that drive the various building classes. But just know as you upgrade the plots, the resources that you benefit from will increase at various rates. But in addition to the resources increasing, so too do the needs of your settlers. So as your settlement is producing more resources, it's obviously going to need more defense. And higher tier buildings are often going to require more power. And there are other things that increase over time as well. So in addition to increased production, you're also going to see increased needs. Now, one other way you can impact production is by operating on manual assignment. So each of the special stats has a particular small bonus to your plots. So if you wanted to, you could go analyze the stats of your settlers. We actually give you a tool during our story to do just this, and shuffle around their assignments to get little benefits. These are designed so that they are highly valuable in the early game, and they scale less as you go higher into the game. So when you start to unlock the various advanced production classes, these are much less beneficial. So eventually this min-max activity is less valuable, but in the early game it can get you a little edge. So let's talk about each of the special stats and which plot they operate best on. So first up is strength. That is best suited for operating on industrial. Perception is best on the municipal water plants. Endurance benefits food production and agricultural. Charisma benefits cap production on commercial. Intelligence benefits power plants on the municipal plot. And lastly, agility benefits defense production on martial plots. We also have a wild card in luck that impacts a system you will unlock later off of the caravan service plots that can increase the likelihood of unlocking new building plans. You'll find out about this system later on. It's called the Mark I beacons if you have already stumbled upon that. Note that if your caravan services worker that gets called to pick up that beacon has a high luck stat, you increase the chance of getting new discoveries. All right, the last thing we're going to go over in this video is the additional options in the ASAM Sensor menu that haven't been covered in other plot videos. So if we activate our ASAM Sensor, the first thing you'll notice about this one is there's a special status message that says can't afford construction costs. There are a variety of these status messages. These are the ones that may or may not show up as icons as well. But if you're ever having a plot feel like it's not doing anything, you can check here and see if there's a status you can try and resolve. So in this case, getting more scrap for the settlement would resolve this. In some cases, such as for construction costs and a special system called operating costs, which make plots have a daily upkeep that is not enabled by default, you may be able to pay for those out of your pocket. In the case of this, if you choose start construction, or in the case of unpaid operating costs, if you choose pay operating costs, you can offer to pay them, and if virtual resources are available, it will take them. Otherwise, it will take them right out of your inventory. The next option down here is track occupants. If we were to activate this, a tracking quest would start in your Pip-Boy if you hadn't used it before. It's called the City Manager Tracking. If we go into our quest thing, City Manager Software Tracking, and it tracks the plot you activated on as well as all of its occupants. So you can figure out who is assigned to a particular plot. And if you activate that option again, it will clear the tracking so that that quest is no longer in your log. The next option down we've gone over, choose building plan, but I want to go over it one more time for a particular reason, and that's that occasionally some of you will activate this menu, you'll get to this screen, and it will be either empty or all you will see is random and all of the classes, and there will be no building plans available. This tends to happen under one of two circumstances. The first is if you uninstalled an add-on pack that added a unique combination of plot type and size that is not supported by the base mod. For example, in the base mod, we do not have any 1x1 recreational plots. So if you had built a 1x1 recreational and it was provided by an add-on pack, and then that add-on pack was uninstalled, when you went to that 1x1 recreational, there would be no building plans available because there are none installed for that type. But the more common reason that this happens is because something corrupted our cache, and our cache just lets us display the list of building plans more quickly. This often happens if you are juggling your load order around a lot, if you are installing or uninstalling a lot of mods, but it can also just happen in an older save. And if you ever find that this happens, what you're going to want to do is launch the City Manager holotape, go to the Tools section, then go down to Advanced, that's at Advanced right at the top, and you're going to go down to Reset Building Plan Caches. And this will run for a few minutes, and the next time you go, you should find that the building plans are suddenly restored to that menu. If we go one more time to this menu, we've got Refresh Plot. This is a very valuable tool, and what this basically does is it rebuilds all of the items that are meant to be on that plot. It retests all of the statuses and checks if the plot should build and or upgrade. So this is a great thing to hit if you find there are floating items or if the plot seems to be behaving erratically. There's a variety of reasons that these problems can occur. The most common is because the Fallout 4 engine limits the amount of scripting time that can happen in any given frame of the game. And if you build up too many backed up scripts, eventually your save becomes unstable, so the game can start terminating those scripts. And that basically means that things that the game, or rather SimSettlements 2 was expecting to happen, could not happen. So then you can end up with a plot in a funky state. So the refresh plot is kind of your fallback option. It gives you a way to force that plot to reset itself in a sense, and can often resolve odd issues. It can even resolve weird statuses that you are sure you're resolved. So if you're having a problem with the plot, try refreshing it. Next, on the advanced options menu, we've been here before to configure the defaults in the customization tutorial. We have two additional options. One is prevent auto upgrades. If you were to select this, and then if we go back to the menu, that will actually switch to allow them. And basically what this does is you can tell a plot to stay at its current level, and then going forward, whenever that plot was fully eligible to upgrade, rather than having a start construction option here, if a plot was eligible to upgrade, you would see an upgrade plot option, because you basically told that plot, I want to choose when it upgrades. This setting is actually available globally as well, and you can find that in the settings. Next, we've got the destroy plot option. This does exactly what you think it will. It will destroy the plot. Now, we added this because on occasion, for the same reason that things like building plan cache can get corrupted, or that a plot can be in a weird state, you can end up with a case occasionally where there is only an ASAM sensor there and the plot is not scrappable in workshop mode, and often using the destroy plot will clean up that excess that got left over due to failed scripts. There's one additional setting that will show up occasionally on these ASAM sensor menus that we are not seeing currently because we don't have any plots that are necessary to show it. You may have a view reports option, and this will allow you to see the specific items that are being produced or the specific operating costs if you have that system enabled. All right, that should cover pretty much every detail that I was able to dream up on plots. Definitely check out the wiki if there's additional things that I missed. They've likely covered that there. Otherwise, take care and enjoy the mods.